Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the Latanya Moore Morning Show. I'm actually going to be getting set up here while you all are getting set up because we are prepared to go live. So excited about today's show where we're going to be talking about. I'm actually going to be getting set up here while you all are getting set up. Let's get everything set up. So we're going to be talking today about just stop using online contracts. I know that yesterday we talked about, three top pitfalls and all of those things, but today I really want to talk about the use of online contracts. For those of you that know that I post a lot of legal tips and things of that nature, and it seems like every single time I post something about contracts, there's a lot of there is a lot of responses and things like that. So when I was preparing for today, I was like, maybe I need to really stop and talk a little bit about the contracts part of it, because I know it's something I promote 100% all day long. Good morning, Lee. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure that you share the post. Please put your questions in the comment section. I'm going to try to do that and look at the comments and get the questions. But if for some reason you put a question in the comment section and I don't get to it while we are broadcasting live, I will definitely go back. I do monitor the comments. For those of you that are watching on a replay, same thing. If you have a question about what we're talking about today with regards to the contracts, you can certainly put those questions in the comments, and I will come back and I'll answer those questions live. So again, we're talking about legal tips. We're talking about why you should not use online contracts. Thank you so much, Lee, for sharing. I know I owe you a call and we're definitely going to do that. But yeah, so I had some inbox messages, again, some comments about the different contracts that I've mentioned. I know we talk about like non-disclosure agreements, which is something that I think I posted about yesterday or the day before. And I know that there's always a lot of traction on that. Let me give you a couple of points while we're talking today about contracts. I know that everyone believes and they think that, well, I don't want to go to a lawyer because they're going to charge me a lot of money. But you also have to ask yourself, so what are you willing to risk by not having a contract in place, or by having going to Office Depot or Staples or some of these other places and getting some type of contract that really honestly is just very generic? It's one of those things. Thanks for joining, Bobby. Thanks for sharing. But it's one of those things that you really have to ask yourself, are you serious about your business? Because again, it may be something that I'm a little bit more prone to think about, because typically when my business clients come to me, they've already had an issue. They've already had a problem. Something has already happened that now, if they would have had a contract in place, if they would have contacted me up front before they even started this, then they wouldn't have this issue that they're dealing with, or they wouldn't have some potential liability. So this is something that is very near and dear and important to me, because I've seen what happens on the other side, especially to entrepreneurs. So I want to say this: stop using online contracts. Just stop it. If you are going to look for something online, which I'm really saying just don't do it. The best thing that you can ever do, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. The best thing, honestly, that you can do is to pay the money up front, find you an attorney or a consultant, someone who does this type of thing for a living. For me, for example, when I deal with my clients, I always say the reason that you have to have a contract by someone who knows what they're doing is that a lot of the contracts that are online, first of all, you don't even know what state it's for. That's number one. You have no idea if what's in that contract is actually going to protect you in the state that you live. That is very, very vital. It is very, very important. Very important. So I think that you need to really understand that that's really the first step. That's really the reason why I'm saying do not get an online contract. You don't know where it's from. Even if you look at it and it says, like, I'm in the state of Alabama. So even if you look at it and it says, okay, this is sufficient for Alabama, it may be technically legally sufficient. And all that means is that you've met all the markers for it to be a binding contract. It doesn't mean that your particular interests are going to be covered. It doesn't mean that any of the rights that you want to preserve in that contract is going to be preserved. So again, it's really something that you have to think about. And that's why I say, just don't even do the online contracts. And I know that there's someone actually watching here that does intellectual property. I don't do intellectual property. And if you're still on, listen, please feel free to put information in the comments really about the IP side of it, because that's yet another reason why we say don't use the online contract. So you don't even know what state it's from. You don't know if what's in that contract is actually going to cover your state. The other question is, when was this particular standard, or we call them CAN contract, created? And the reason that's important is that, let's say that it is legally sufficient. Let's say that it does cover everything. There could have been a change in your state law that now renders certain portions of that contract unenforceable. It may be something that may not even be legal now, but you're agreeing to do these things because you decided that you want to pay $19 or whatever for a canned contract. So again, step number one is, where was it created? What state is it for? What state law is it talking about? If it's something that says you can use this in all 50 states, you should already know that there's a problem with it. You should already know that there are some inefficiencies in it, or some things that are not covered, because laws are different across the states, all the different states. So we know that. The second thing, for those of you that are just joining, is, when was it created? Again, the law could have changed during that time frame. This could be something that you can't even do now, but you're operating off of a contract that unfortunately is not even sufficient at this time. The third thing that you want to think about, a lot of us, when we're doing these online contracts, we're not even considering the fact that we may be working with someone who lives in another state. So now you have two different laws that are actually in play, because you have the law where you live, and then you have the law where the person who you're contracting with lives. So the question then becomes, how do we do that? Because I'm telling you that your canned contracts that you buy online overwhelmingly will not include that type of information. That's going to be crucial. It's going to be key. And for the attorneys that are on, please feel free to put comments in the section letting them know, because this is very important for you to know that you have got to make sure that you're covered on all bases. The third thing, or the fourth thing that I really want to talk about is, does it really speak to your particular situation? These online contracts, again, they are very generic. They may not even deal with any of the things that you're talking about. It may just say, hey, it's a lot of fill in the blank, well, I'm going to contract with this person and this is what we're going to do. But there's not enough sufficient detail so that if there's ever a challenge, if there's ever a problem, now you really have something that you can leverage in court. It is very key, guys, that you do this. Again, I'm not knocking any of the online databases per se, but I think that when you're dealing with legal issues, for example, and you're talking about intellectual property, you're talking about other rights, you're talking about your right to go to court, you're talking about your right to utilize your product and services in a certain way. You're talking about whether or not you're giving away rights to your intellectual property for other people to use. So again, all of these things go into play when you're putting a contract together. And that is why I am encouraging you, do not use an online contract. Now, many of you still will. So for those of you that decide, hey, I'm still going to use an online contract. My contract is fine. I would just invite you to think about the things that you learn here. Go back and look at your contract and see, are these things accounted for in your contract? That's all. My goal is that you're covered. My goal is that when you're putting these things together, that you understand that it's a lot that goes into it. And one of the reasons that I want to say that is because oftentimes people will say, well, I'm not going to pay a lawyer $2,000 and I'm just making that amount up. I'm not going to pay a lawyer $2,000 to create a contract for me when I could just do it myself. One thing that you may want to think about, if that is not in your budget, if you contact an attorney, you cannot afford the fee that they would provide, one thing that you can consider is asking them how much they would charge you for a consultation that includes a legal review. And what that means is you would put the contract together yourself. You will have an attorney review it for certain sufficiencies, and they can tell you the things that they need to change, and you pay them for their time. All attorneys do not do that. Some of them, because of course we are still held responsible for what happens from that point forth. But that again is something that I think that you need to really consider. If you do not have the budget, there's nothing wrong with asking. If it's something that they don't do or they won't do, you may want to reach out to an outside consultant. I deal with people. As a matter of fact, I have clients in several other states. I do a lot of these things for them. I'm not licensed in all of those states. They understand that I'm not licensed in all of those states. They understand that I cannot represent them. They understand that what I'm providing them is not legal advice. However, what they do understand is the value of what they're getting at this time. The other thing that I always hear people say when I ask them, why would you try to do this contract, without having an attorney draw it up or at least review it? And they just said, well, at least I have something in writing. And it almost rips my heart out, when I hear people say, at least I have something in writing, because if what you have in writing is worthless, is it really at least you have something in writing? I mean, realistically, is it really worth it to have something that's worthless? Because that's in essence what's happening when you have a written document that really isn't a legally sufficient contract. So what good is it really if it doesn't cover your particular situation? What good is it if really at the end of the day, you're not binding the other people to do anything, and you're not protecting your rights, and you're not doing any of those things? That's why I say don't use the online contracts, because there are all these questions, and I'm throwing the questions out there because I want the business owner, you guys that are listening now, or you guys that are listening on the replay, I really want you to think about these things when you're looking at working with another party, when you're looking at contracting with someone for services, when you're looking at the biggest thing that I see is when people go and they speak at different events. I'll just use that as an example because that's huge. They speak at different events, and either they don't even have a contract in place. They just have an invoice that people pay them. They know what they're supposed to do. And on the back end, now you get there and they're videotaping the particular event. They want to videotape your workshop. They want to be able to do other things with it that's going to make money. Does your contract address that situation? Probably not. If you got it online, more than likely it does not address that situation. It absolutely should, 100%. Anytime that you're going to speak at an event where they're going to, especially now, if it's something that you created. So if someone contacts you and they say, I really want you to come talk about X. So if someone contacts LaTanya and says, I really want you to come to our event and I want you to talk about not using online contracts, for example, I'm going to ask all those questions. Okay, so tell me about the event. Is the event being recorded, whether video or audio? Are you going to be allowing people to live stream from Facebook, Facebook or any other social media during the time that I'm doing my presentation? After the event, are you planning on selling this on demand? Will you be providing conference DVDs? Are you going to in any way use my likeness? These are things that you need to know, because guess what? If it's not in the contract, you cannot prevent them from doing that. You can try to sue. You can, decide that you're going to blast them on Facebook about doing it, or any of the other social media platforms. But this is what I'll tell you. If you do the work up front, and this is what I want to leave everyone with today. If you do the work up front, if you make sure that all the elements that you need in your contract are there, if you're not in a place where you can afford a legal review each time, talk to a consultant like me. I actually work with people where I help them put all that sort of stuff together. And this isn't a plug for me, but it's something that you can get, that you can use over and over and over, because it's definitely going to address all of these different things. So when you're having your conversation with the person that's booking you, now you know what questions to ask. Then ask them, do you have a standard contract that you use? If they say no, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, I have one. I would like to send it over with the information based on what we've talked about today, based on what our agreement is. I'd like to send it over for you to take a look at it. Nothing wrong with that. If they, however, do have a standard contract, ask to review it, but also let them know that there are certain standards that you have in your contract that either you would like to be included as an addendum to their contract, or could we use my contract versus the standard one that you have? Of course, this is after you review it. And the third scenario is, can we just consider these additional terms, I guess, as even a rider? What are all the things that you need? Because the great thing is, when you go and you're looking at all the points that we've talked about today, and there are other points, of course, we just don't have a lot of time. But when you look at all the things that we've talked about today, these are all the things that will get you started on a really just a great footing as you're going out. The other thing too, it protects your brand. The last thing is, it actually puts you in a position where you can maximize your profits. You make sure that if they are going to utilize those DVDs, so let's just talk about that before we get off, because let's say you talk to them and they are going to utilize those DVDs. Let's just use that as an example. One thing that you can tell them is, or you can try to negotiate, is a royalty from that. For every DVD you sell, let's say that they're selling DVDs for $10. So you say, well, for every DVD you sell, I'd like $1. I'm just making this up. These are all negotiation points. These are all great things that you can do to maximize. So think about it like this. You go, you speak at an event, you're paid to speak at the event. You get the opportunity to sell your own products and services. You get the opportunity to sell yourself. But because they are utilizing that later on for additional funding, for additional profits, additional sales, all of those things, now you can negotiate a piece of that, and that's going to give you the opportunity to continue to make money off of that event even after you leave. That's why I suggest stop using online contracts. Again, thank you everyone for liking and sharing. Thank you for being a part of this. I really appreciate it. I really want your questions. I really want you to send your questions. Put your questions in the comment section. For those of you that are watching on the replay, you can still put your questions in the comment section. I will be monitoring the video feed pretty much all day today, so I will be getting to those questions. If you have a question about a specific service or something of that nature, you can also inbox me if you don't want to put those questions actually on the online feed. But again, stop using online contracts. They are typically going to be boilerplate contracts. They're not going to cover your particular situation. They're almost never going to cover anything about the residuals, about the continued earning potential. They're going to almost always never talk about or cover the situation where you're dealing with two parties that are in two different states, they almost never, they almost never are going to cover any of those very crucial and vital things. So what's my point? What am I trying to tell you to do? Stop using online contracts. But more importantly, I'm really encouraging you, seek out a professional who can help you make sure that you have this lined up. Seek out someone or a mentor. You may be working with a mentor. You may be working with a coach that is already doing these things. They already have these things in place. I'm encouraging you to, if you don't, find one, or again, reach out to consultants that do this, that this is specifically what they do. They make sure that you are prepared. There are so many programs out there that will make sure that you know exactly how to deal with all of these situations. And they don't cost you they don't cost you $5,000. So again, this isn't about legal representation. It isn't about any of that. It's really about helping you understand why you should go a different route in getting to the same place. It's a better route. It's going to help you in the long run. Again, for those of you that are just joining, for those of you that are listening on the replay, we are talking about why you should stop using online contracts. And so at the top of the video, we talked about all of the different pitfalls. I talk a lot about avoiding legal pitfalls. This is one that for me, that really no one should really fall in. You know that whenever you agree to provide a service, whenever you agree to appear somewhere to help someone else, regardless, even if there's no money changing hands, another legal tip, even if there's no money changing hands, you must have that standard contract. And so that's what I want to leave you guys with today, that in every situation, in every single situation where you are conducting any level of business, even if it's pro bono, you must have a contract in place, because by having the contract in place, you already know what you're going to provide, what you're not going to provide. The person agrees to certain things. And so if things go left at the end, you've already talked about it up front. But if there's no contract in place, or if there's one that doesn't cover all these bases and they're not legally sufficient, you're going to have a major problem in honestly prevailing. You're going to have a major problem probably in protecting your brand, and you're definitely going to have a major problem in protecting your business. So thank you guys so much for being a part of the Latanya Moore Show this morning, where we talked about stop using online contracts. Stop it. Just stop it. You can go to my website, www.latanyamore.com, and you can click the Work With Me tab. That'll tell you a lot more about protecting your brand and things of that nature. We are going to be uploading typically once or twice a month. We upload new resources, free resources. Later on today, I'll actually be posting some information right on the website to a free Protect Your Brand webinar that we're going to be hosting next month. It is a 30-minute webinar. Again, it's free. We will be doing it as a live feed, but you must register if you want to take advantage of the discounts. You must register if you want to take advantage of some of the freebies that I will be giving away as part of that particular webinar. So keep looking out for that. Again, I'm going to be sending that out. It's going to go out today. But for those of you that are watching the replay, or for those of you that are watching live, you know about it first. One thing about the registrations for the free webinar, that those are going to be limited. Again, we will be going out live, and you guys will be able to see the live feed from my Latanya Moore fan page. However, the only way that you can take advantage of the discounts, and the only way that you can take advantage of some of the freebies that we're going to have is if you register. So we'll be sending out more information about that. Thank you so much for being a part of the Latanya Moore Show. If you have questions, please make sure that you put those questions right there in the comment section. I'm going to be monitoring it for you all day. If you're not comfortable putting it in the comments, send me an inbox message and I'll definitely answer your question there. So until next time, see you tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, right here live on Facebook. If you have any questions that you want me to answer tomorrow live, send those to me as well. Thank you so much for joining me for the Latanya Moore Morning Show.